Okay, we are about to kick things off. And our first speaker is a wonderful personality. He's the co founder and art director of Magic Carpet Studio. He played an instrumental role in the training of 100 animators, and he is one of the most respected artists and emerging art directors to look out for. Please give a round of applause for Chekwebe Okonkwo.
Okay, nice to see everyone. I'm Chekwebe Okonkwo, as she has introduced me, co-founder, art director, Magic Carpet. And let me not waste so much time because I talk a lot. So let me take the time and tell you my story, and maybe some way, somehow, you would find something in it. I consider myself as just the ordinary guy, right? But let me share my story. I always, I've always been an artist from inception. I've always loved artwork. I've always loved things that are connected to the soul, things that have spirits. And for me, art is actually a relationship. Art runs deep than what's that just making artworks and all that stuff, right? So I started out like every child. I said everybody have the ability to draw one way or the other, but they left it somewhere, right? So I started out, I'm just that one kid that didn't know when to stop, and I kept on drawing and everything, right? So I think I started out in school and always drawing, never really paying attention in class, always creating artwork, drawing at the back of my notes, on my locker, everywhere was just draw. So I consider myself as a misfit some way, somehow, because I just didn't fit in. And I think for my artwork spoke volumes for me. And when everybody see my work, like, okay, I can see you now, right? So I kept on drawing. And I think one story that really, inspired my story was the story of my sister. My sister, she used to be, the one that they used to call she's not so smart in class, and they would say, call her Olodo and all that stuff. And for me, it broke my heart anytime she come back home and say, okay, why is there anything wrong with me? And she spoke to my dad one time and said, why are they calling me Olodo? What's the problem? And, my dad, I think, he knelt down and prayed with her. And after that prayer, the following day, I think he went to a bookstore and he took her, with him, and he bought a lot of books, right? Lantern books back then, all the books, just bought books, and, they came home that weekend, and, she just dropped like a bag full of books. And for me, that was the introduction to literature. And for me, I didn't read much, but I would once, had to read it and give me the gist, right? So I'm like, just read it, read this one now. For me, I'm that kid that I just focus on the pictures, right? You're like, okay, I just look at the book, I just look at the picture, okay, that's enough. Just read the book and give me the gist. And, at night we would, gather together and, we'll read these books. And for me, what really opened my eyes, the first book that I read that opened my eyes to everything was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? I remember reading that book with my brother. I read it by the lantern, this local lamp. So he would read the first page and, we'll turn to the next page. He'll say, are you done? I say, yeah. And he would read and he would close his eye. He would just stay in the bed. I'm like, oh my God, Check, you've not gotten to this part. And we read that book to the very end. And for me, that was my first introduction to magic, right? And that book opened my mind to everything. And I think my interpretation for storytelling changed. And, journeys, I kept on drawing. And, years later, I got into uni, and I realized that this art thing would not really pay the bills because my dad had that issue, like, okay, how are you going to make a living from this? So I started going into filmmaking, right? I started, I would advise not to try this show. I was using bits of my school fees to make films, short films here and there, and I would take people, then I schooled in Benin, so I'll take people to Wida, and we'll go and shoot film, just rubbish stuff, and we'll come back, and everybody will like, when is it going to be out, and all that stuff, and I'm like, just calm down, right? I did that in uni, and then we had this major big project that we needed funding for, and after school, I was still in school, just trying to get funding for this film, but it never worked. So my friend, told me like, Checks, you've been in Benin for a while. I think you should come to Lagos and, just start afresh and everything. So that was when, someone introduced me to Fedi, right? And the person said, okay, there's someone that wants to meet you. He saw your work, and for him, it felt like the work you're moving. I'm like, honestly, I'm not in that headspace, and I just want to, create artwork. I just don't want to meet anybody. Well, like, and the first day, second day, he called again. Like, this guy wants to meet you. So I went to the island, and I came very early, sat down at the reception. In fact, I even slept, and someone came to me and was like, "Are you the one looking for Fedi?" I'm like, yeah. And you're sleeping. You're here for an interview. I'm like, I never realized it was an interview. So, I met Fedi, and I just brought out this dead laptop, right? I think system had started, when I turned the off button, there was this sound, and Fedi looked at me, and, it was funny. And then I started showing him my works, and I started pitching the movie idea I had from school. And, Fedi was just, I think he was just interested. I was just so confident of what I believe in. For me, I was not even looking at working with the company at the time. But Fedi had other intentions. I think at the time they were looking for a graphic artist and wondering if I could fit in the role. But I was a digital artist, right? I wasn't doing graphics and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, Fedi, this is my movie project. What do you think about it? It's like, okay, you know what? I'm running some, theaters here and there. I think, this stuff, we can make it. I'm like, really, you can make it. Just come with me in this journey. So I think he drove me to the bus stop and he gave me this card. And then, like, okay, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And then we came on board. I came on board and joined the team, a very small team back then. And I was the graphics guy. But the truth is, graphics was really terrible. I never understood the concept of graphics. So, naturally people would download fonts, right? For me, I was creating these fonts and stuff from scratch, right? And, I remember the guys back then, when they look at the work, they'll be like, what are you doing? What's this? I'm like, it was just too arty, right? To do a random banner would make it very artistic, to have deep meanings, right? And it wasn't just working. So at some point, they stopped giving me work. And I realized that nobody was giving me anything to do. I would just come to the office and I'll stay there. And Fedi called me to the balcony. I'm like, Checks, this stuff you're doing, I don't understand. I'm like, how? I say, even me, I don't understand. Nobody's giving me anything to do again. And we had that conversation, and it was like, I think you're very more of an arty guy, so probably you should just, try your hands on, this animation stuff. So we just had that conversation. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. He said, okay, there are a couple of people that are doing trainings here and there. I'll give it a shot. And I remember, everyone give a round of applause to Tosin Ututoju, please. So something happened, and I think she sent me a message one time, and she said, I think she came by the studio looking at the graphics, and she was like, the guys create Boondocks, South Park, and all this animation. I see your artwork tilting more towards that direction. And when she said that, Fedi had said some couple of things like that, but I was like, okay, maybe he's just, saying, but people started saying stuff about animation and stuff. Like, okay, let me give it a shot. I felt like animation was too far, in the distance. I just saw those things like magic. I never understood it. I just wanted to be an artist, and that's all. And so, I think my journey started with animation. I started going as far as, Ogun State, looking for one guy like that to teach me animation. And the guy was like, okay, so we sat down together and we were trying to figure out the software together. I was like, no, that is not the brush tool. This is the brush tool. He said, oh. I said, okay, it's going to happen. You will give me time like this, make I learn this thing. And I'm like, I paid you, man. So I collected all his tutorials and I went home, and I just started chewing on this stuff, but it wasn't really working. For me, I think the best way to learn is on the job, right? So at this point in time, I was kind of really confused. And, then Fedi was with me throughout the whole journey. And I think they were really, really patient with me. And, I came up with this speech, I'm like, okay, Fedi, I want to, pitch you a story, and don't worry, you will like it. I think I'm good to go now with the animation. At this point in time, I've not learned jack. I don't know how to animate. Fedi like, okay, let's give it a shot, let's give it a try. And then, pitch day, everybody sat down, it was tense. And then we sat down, and I had this, PowerPoint slide. I said, I think the title of that pitch was The Window to the Soul, right? So I started doing introduction to animation in Nigeria, and the journey to as a studio and everything. We're not even a studio, it's pretty much, a digital agency. And, I think that's when, we bet the idea of a magic carpet, right, in that document. And take notes, at this point in time, I didn't know how to animate. So I pitched a story, and at this point in time, Fedi, they were all excited. And, Fedi was like, oh, we're gonna make a feature film, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. So we're just really, really excited about it. And for me, I think I was tensed again. I was wondering, okay, now I've lied. How am I going to make this film work? So the title of that stuff was Meet the Igwes, right? And that's what the story I pitched. And immediately we got, I think the following week we got down to production. We had a guy from Tinso, he was writing, so he would write the first page and he would pass it to me. There was no process, there was nothing. He would write the second page, he would pass it to me, animate. So for me, I think YouTube was my friend. I would just say, okay, work circle, I would just go to YouTube, check it out, and just start animating. So I really, really, went through the process. And at the point in time, everybody was frustrated at me, like, okay, Checks, what's happening? Like, it's not fast, right? We need this stuff out fast. I'm like, I'm killing myself. At this point, we didn't understand how animation worked, right? We never understood that, to create an animated film, it takes about 200, 300 people as a team to come together to make an animated film. So for me, I think I thank God that I never, got that reality check back then, right? Maybe if I did, I would have run away. I'm like, okay, no, this stuff is not possible. But I kept on being curious, like, why am I not doing it, right? I kept calling myself like, wait, Check, you failed again, you're a failure. You tried this stuff out with live action. You get what I'm saying? You never made it through. Right now, in your own craft as animation, you're still not able to, pull this through. And then I start living in that anxiety and that tension. And it wasn't really, really working. And we had to sit down and restructure and then think things through again. And that's when we started thinking about hiring people. We started thinking about, okay, reaching out. At this point in time, we've done, some commercials. I don't know how many of you have seen this Ego Ibo back then of two characters making a phone call and all that stuff. So that was the stuff that really, gave me the confidence that, okay, this stuff I can really do this stuff, because everything I did was for the first time. And we decided to increase our capacity, and that's when the training started, and it started getting serious for me. And we went as far as, Yaba Tech. We started speaking to graphic department students. We went as far as Unilag, started speaking to people and in graphic departments to come join the team. And I was training, and I was like an apostle for animation and art. I was telling people about this stuff, and for them it was very foreign, because if you go to some of these schools, they're still doing the traditional thing, right? In a graphic department where they were teaching you about prints, they'll probably be telling you the traditional way, dabbing with foam and everything. Like, no, you can easily do this stuff in system, right? So for me, we went through all that phase, we trained, and here we are now as a studio of about 50 animators. And for me, the journey is still unfolding. We have exciting projects. In fact, I think we are one studio in Nigeria that really position ourselves as a full-fledged studio, in the sense that we have 3D departments, we have 2D departments, and we have traditional department that does traditional work. So we have exciting projects. The Passport of Madam Elia, I know many of you have heard about it. that's what we've been in production. So for us, we felt like it's very, very necessary to come from literature, right? If you look at my story, you understand now, like, where literature played a very significant role. So looking at African literature, I never knew that, okay, one of the books my dad bought and I read, I would be animating it, right? And now, it's all connecting and it's making sense. And I'm in the studio every day, we're working, and, there's the joy that comes with creativity. And, when you sit down with your teammates and you guys are, trying to flesh out an idea and trying to think about, animation, it's just so beautiful. The truth is, you have these things in your mind, and you just, at first, it's a leap of faith. I would say you just have these thoughts, you have this imagination in your head, and some way, somehow, you have this story, and you're like, okay, you know what, let's make it work. And someone does the sketch there, and from the sketch it goes to a coloring, and from there, okay, let us make some little body parts move, and before you know it, that character comes alive, and that character is being given life. You get, so for the first time, I think in this part of the world, we are really doing it. We are really, really doing it. Our short film just came out. I don't know how many of you saw SIP. SIP. Please, if you haven't seen SIP, please go to our YouTube channel, look for animated short film SIP, and watch it. I think it's a brilliant work. So pretty much, I think this is where I would stop now for my story, so I don't say too much.
Thank you very much, Chekwebe. I actually have one question, because you said a lot about feeling anxious and that feeling of you're failing. What was the one thing that inspired you and got you back on that horse? Because I know a lot of us have that dread that I'm not doing so well, I'm not going to make it. So what can you say was one thing that, motivated you to keep going?
Okay, that's a tough one, because I think that's a day-to-day. If I'll be realistic, it happens every day. Being a creative in Nigeria sometimes can be really hard, and sometimes it can be very discouraging, right? So I think looking at the journey that you've been through and understanding that, I think someone said something today, say it's written. Do you get what I'm saying? You just need to understand that some things is written. They are written. And when you understand that it's written, you just have to keep trying. And you're like, okay, you know what? I will just keep trying. I'll keep going. So it's not easy. I could just say, okay, keep trying. But I think once in a while, I think the people around you also matters, right? And you also have to have, friends that can tell you the truth, and people that are in the same wavelength as you. And anytime you fall in that pit, they're always there to pick you up. I think, Fedi is that guy for me, and, every now and then it just fall into that headspace. We are always there talking to each other.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Please, do we have any questions? Anyone in the audience who wants to ask him something?
Okay, I'm Barnabas. So I heard you were talking about, like, when you were starting up, you didn't really have like a full grasp of animation and what was going on. So I'm currently in a, should I say, similar dilemma where you are starting something, you actually have like a portfolio, like things you've done, but now it boils down to your physical, your mental acceptance, right? You don't know if you are really good at this or you are a fraud. So how do you really beat that? Like, what was that moment for you that said, oh, okay, I'm actually good at this, let me keep pushing?
So I think trust in your process to begin with. I think confidence, there's a brutal confidence you just have to have in yourself, and also trust, in the, so again, to conquer that feeling of fraud is if you have a genuine relationship with art as a person. Let us say art is a person. You have that genuine relationship and you have this strong connection and love with that art. And you trust in your own creativity, because no two people draw alike. Everybody have their own fingerprint. Everybody have the style that appeals to them. You have what appeals to you as an artist, right? And you have to trust that. So for me, I think another way that can help you is to see how you can join a studio. I think what we are doing right now is that we have a Magic Lab training ground, you know, that's available to everybody. If you want to, if you're interested in animation, if you want to come on board, you can just, you know, fill up the form, and it's as easy as that, and you come intern with us and work with us. So I think surrounding yourself with fellow artists that can help you develop, you can only go as far as, you know, to an extent, going on with this journey by yourself. So you need people, you need friends. I think the new need friends, right? Anytime you're trying to break through something, or you need people like mind to share, you know, to compare. You need that healthy competition once in a while, right? So I think above all, just trust in your creative process, and just maintain that relationship you have, you know, with the arts, and that's it.